Welcome to Contemporary Retirement. Contemporary Retirement is a public interest program focused on the retirement community. Every program has segments on legal, financial, and health issues affecting the retirement community. Contemporary Retirement is sponsored in part by a major grant from the Family Heritage Trust Company.
Contemporary Retirement is sponsored by Family Heritage Trust Company. The Family Heritage Trust Company is an independent bank chartered trust company established by local professionals to provide fiduciary services including fee-based investment advice, trust services, retirement planning, and tax planning. The Family Heritage Trust Company is committed to client service in our communities. For more information, call the Family Heritage Trust Company at 301-631-5900.
Contemporary Retirement is sponsored in part by a grant from R. Thomas Murphy & Associates, P.C. R. Thomas Murphy & Associates is one of Franklin County's leading law firms, emphasizing estate, trust, elder law, and medical assistance planning.
Welcome to the Is It Legal feature on Contemporary Retirement. Is It Legal focuses on the legal issues affecting the retirement community. With me today is Tom Murphy from the R. Thomas Murphy Law Firm with offices in Waynesboro, Chambersburg, and McConnellsburg. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Good morning, Mike.
Tom, we deal with families who have, family members all over the country, and they're hearing all kinds of input from various family members. Mom or dad may be in our area, but the kids are all over the place.
Right.
They're talking to their own lawyers, and they're getting information from them. And I know you and I routinely tell family members that there's a filter to figure out whether or not the lawyer they're talking to is really well versed in this area or attended a seminar 6 years ago and remembers a little bit from that seminar. Mm-hmm. What's the organization we tell people to look at every time we talk to see if that person meets a basic test?
Well, the national organization is the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys, NAELA, and it is the world's leading group of elder law attorneys in the country.
I've never met a qualified elder law attorney who is not a member of that organization.
Well, exactly. If they're not interested enough or busy enough in that area to join, then I don't think they should be giving advice in that area.
Well, and then within that organization, there's sort of the gold standard, which is if a person meets this particular level of qualification, they almost certainly know what they're talking about.
Absolutely. The CELAs, the Certified Elder Law Attorneys, are the best of the best, and they're people who have been battle tested and tested book-wise and otherwise, and with experience who have done it almost exclusively in that area for years.
And I think the operative word is both experience, because they're required to show documentation, not showing names, of multiple hundreds of files that they've handled over the years, plus testing requirements.
Absolutely. I mean, we both went through the testing, and that was not a lot of fun, probably worse than the bar exam, but it really does bring out the knowledge, and you have to know your stuff in order to pass.
And so as a result of which, what we tell family members, we realize that people are hearing information. Right. It's legitimate that they should be concerned about it. Mm-hmm. But when a family member in Oklahoma is questioning how you or I are handling a case and their lawyer told them this, we tell them, go onto that website, see if the lawyer that's giving, second guess opinions on this thing organization and ideally has the gold standard. Well, the fact is you almost never find people at that level really disputing much on how these cases ought to be handled.
Well, exactly, and I think we both agree. We're the first people to step back and say, well, if your Texas or Oklahoma attorney who is a SEAL is telling you to do X, that's probably the right answer for that jurisdiction, but it's not uniform across the country.
And the irony is because it is a federal program, state administered, while I would never take a Pennsylvania case, or you'd never take a Maryland case, or either of us take a Texas case, we do tend to find that the SEALers, or the high-level elder law attorneys, do pretty much talk the same way as to how these matters need to be handled in individual jurisdictions.
Well, exactly. There is that approach, which is client-focused, taking care of the security and focusing on there and doing things just right. And I think that's a good way to approach any of these cases.
And so not every high-quality elder law attorney is a CELA, but there's virtually no way that you can pass the CELA exam and not know what you're talking about.
You got to know what you got to know in order to pass these tests and get certified.
So once again, National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys, NAELA.org. See if that attorney is giving secondhand advice is really a member of that organization.
It's the best way to go.
Tom, as always, thanks for taking time to appear on our program.
You're welcome.
More from Contemporary Retirement after these messages.
Few things in life are as important as family. Leave your insurance orders to us. Write Gardner. Call or visit our website to learn how we can make insurance simple and more affordable.
Every that meets its end leaves a heart for love to mend. Sister, brother, family, friends are left to carry on. When the loss seems more than you can bear, it's nice to know that we'll be there at Douglas A. Fiery Funeral Home. We care.
Call Ed Lowe to help put your mind at ease.
Welcome to the special guest feature on contemporary retirement. This segment focuses on various issues which are of importance to the retirement community. My guest today is Rebecca Massey Lane, Director of the Washington County Museum of Fine Arts. Welcome to the show, Rebecca.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
First of all, what's a little bit of the history of the museum?
The Washington County Museum of Fine Arts was founded in actually 1928, but it opened in 1931. It took the founders and the city a few years to work out all the details because this was a brand new concept for this region. And it's launched its beginning right in the middle of the Great Depression.
And of course, a beautiful lake location as well.
That's right. City Park was founded about 2 decades earlier, or 15 years earlier, so it was relatively new as well.
Well, tell us a little bit about the museum, like the cost of going to it.
Oh, it's terribly expensive. It's free to everyone. The museum has always had a policy of free admission to the public.
All right, well, you know, and I think one of the things that's important is just because you were there 3 months ago doesn't mean that you know what's on exhibit now.
Well, that's very true. We have a very active program of changing exhibitions. We bring up works from the permanent collection as well in a rotating schedule. And of course, we have lots and lots of lively programs and art educational activities.
And of course, museums themselves want to stay interested to their constituency, so you trade exhibits among yourselves.
That's right. We have great relationships with other museums of our size and even larger ones. In fact, this spring, our beautiful, wonderful Lafayette sculpture has left our fond and fair city to go on a loan to the Boston Athenaeum in Massachusetts as part of a major exhibition commemorating Lafayette's contributions to America.
All right, well, we have some new exhibits coming up here, so we'll ask Director Greg to pull up some pictures here. So what do we have here?
The first illustration is a photograph by a Shepherd University faculty member, Sonia Evanisco, and we are hosting a group exhibition of their art faculty through the summer.
Well, that sounds like fun, and so then obviously it's not only photography, though, there's a lot of artwork as well.
That's correct. And a lot of photographers would probably challenge the question of whether photography is separate from art, but indeed it has become a very established art form.
And so what do we have here?
This is a pastel, beautiful pastel landscape of a West Virginia scene by West Virginia artist Diana Suttonfield, who is well known in this region.
And of course, that one is incredibly realistic because it almost looked the same as the photograph that we were looking at before. Obviously, very talented artist.
Very, very talented. And this shows Diana in her studio working on a painting.
Okay, and so so she's a local artist then?
She is. She's been in the Shepherdstown region for most of her life. And though she was born and raised in D.C. and lived abroad for a number of years as well.
All right, so now an exhibit such as this, how long would it typically be up?
We keep it up for several weeks because we really want our public to have time to come see. You probably know that by the time you hear of something, sometimes it's quickly going to be gone again.
And what do we have here?
This summer's major exhibition of Masters of American Photography. This is an iconic image by Dorothea Lange of the migrant mother. This is another incredibly important early 20th century photographer, Walker Evans, showing two buddies outside of a Brooklyn, New York diner.
It's very interesting that, you know, as photography evolved as from sort of documentary to art form here, it's very obvious this image sends a lot of messages.
It really does. And of course, the great Ansel Adams, whose Yosemite photograph here, was one of the primary leaders of that transition from documentary photography to art photography.
And of course, it's quite amazing. The image, black and white, in many ways, sends a more pronounced image than color.
It really
message,
does.
rather.
It sort of gets everything down to the absolute essence, and it creates a great deal of drama.
All right, so how can a person find out more about what's going on at the Art Museum?
Oh, well, a person can visit, number one. We offer lots of opportunities for learning more and phoning the museum at 301-739-5727 or the website, wcmfa.org.
And what are the normal hours?
We're open every day except Monday, and weekdays from 9 to 5, Saturdays from 9 to 4, Sundays from 1 to 5.
And we want to emphasize there's almost always something there for everybody because there's a lot of stuff going on at any given time, but then there are very special exhibits. I know you have historical exhibits, all types of other things that people will find of interest as well.
Yes, the museum's permanent collection is well known nationally. We have many significant works of art that are by artists whose works are in the National Gallery of Art in DC, the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So this is often a surprise to our local inhabitants.
Well, Rebecca, once again, thanks for taking time to appear on our program.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. More from Contemporary Retirement after these messages.
Tranquility at Fredericktown Assisted Living and Memory Care provides a warm, home-like atmosphere that promotes daily life enrichment. At Tranquility, our medical director is a geriatric physician. Our professionals support and understand the various stages associated with Alzheimer's and dementia. We have on-site physical, occupational, and speech therapists, as well as around-the-clock licensed nurses. For more information, give Tranquility at Fredericktown a call today, because everyone deserves great care. Let us do the caregiving so you and your loved one can embrace life again.
All right, let's get this show on the road. Ma'am, give me a good push.
Hang on, just 1 minute.
Ma'am, I need you to push right now.
Honey, you really need to push.
It's time.
Just hold on a minute.
No, right now. One push, ma'am. One push.
Just one more bid on HurleyAuctions.com.
If you haven't visited HurleyAuctions.com, you don't know what you're missing. Whether you're buying or selling, antique cars, tractors, boats, or real estate, you can do it all at HurleyAuctions.com.
Get to know Dr. Carrie Hesley at Diagnostic Imaging Services.
What I find most rewarding is caring for women through our Women's Imaging Center. We have a caring staff that will ease patients through an ultrasound, bone densitometry, breast biopsy, or mammogram. Our health team is sensitive to emotions involved in women's imaging and understands that every woman is at risk for breast cancer. Providing the community with a center that is so dedicated to breast health and the imaging needs of women is something special.
DIS Women's Imaging Center, providing women with progressive care.
Welcome to Contemporary Health Scene. Contemporary Health Scene focuses on the health issues affecting the retirement community. With me today, Cynthia Perini, Board Chair, Hospice of Washington County. Welcome to the show, Cynthia.
Thanks so much for having me.
You know, Cynthia, we do a lot of talking about hospice because there's really an evolutionary treatment programming going on here. It was traditionally viewed almost avant-garde, just purely end of life, and now it's a much more expansive program. Give me some examples of that.
A hospice is really meant to help a patient transition through once they've been determined at truly end of life and there's no more rehabilitative care that can be done, to help them transition through the process in a way that allows them comfort, allows their family to be unburdened with a lot of the specifics.
Well, and the fact is that very few people have any desire to be institutionalized end of life. They prefer to be in the comfort of their own home, or certainly in a place other than a hospital or a nursing home.
Absolutely. About 50% of our patients are in nursing homes or long-term care facilities. The other 50% are getting at-home care. We're actually helping the families and medical professionals support that patient.
And I think it's important for people to understand that, first of all, hospice has an expansive model. It's a model that, it starts typically with a diagnosis of a 6-month life expectancy, but that's not hard and fast.
No, it depends. That's a very difficult thing for a medical professional to determine. A lot of times, depending on what the diagnosis is, traditionally, cancer was the first diagnosis that hospice really addressed. Today, we deal with a number of other issues, cardiac issues, dementia, COPD type diagnosis. So it's really helping people transition, and many times those aren't as specific in terms of being able to predict how long. life expectancy.
And organizationally, you're committed to helping people provide services at home in certain circumstances in which it may not necessarily be end of life, but helping families manage people at home.
Actually, it's surprising how many patients come in believing that we're dealing with end-of-life issues, and because hospice is able to help stabilize pain management and help really create a scenario where the patient becomes more comfortable, where the family knows better what to do, that we, from time to time, actually have patients that transition out of hospice care and end up back into traditional medical care, and then someday may come back into our services again. But it's surprising the number of patients each and every month that we will actually transition out of care.
And sometimes there's that fear of not wanting to have hospice involved because it sort of signifies that it's the end of the line, that we're not going to try to do anything else. And that's really not a requirement at all. And people ought to, when they're struggling with taking care of a family member with late in life illness, they ought to be talking to hospice to see if there's resources.
Absolutely. We provide a lot of resources to the community and to the families, and tried to do everything that we can to help provide support. We have so many folks who, whether it be volunteers or employees, that have a lot of experience in dealing with these issues. And sometimes we know in life that it's just finding, the right formula to help provide comfort and help provide pain management, or help provide the resources in terms of whether it's bedding, whether it's plugging people into the right type of care. That becomes really important into helping people provide that comfort that they need.
Now you have a big new project coming up, and I had Director Greg pull up the schematic of it, but that's the new Doey's House, which is a residential end of life. Tell me a little about that.
We're very excited about Doey's House and the opportunity to help people with what we'll call transitional care. It's really meant not to be a long-term care facility, but to be a place where people can come, and it's either transitioning at end of life. Families may not want somebody to pass at home, so it provides an alternative setting in that way. Or sometimes it has to do with providing a family member with the ability to actually get some respite, some rest, and it's a place where their loved one can come for a period of time. Also, it will be a place to help us with the pain management side. There are times whenever, depending on the diagnosis, a patient is just having a lot of difficulty getting a handle on the pain management piece of it. And when we can bring them into a facility like that and really provide the 24/7 care for a couple of days, train the family members in what to do and how to support, this facility should be very helpful with families in that way.
Well, Cynthia, I want to thank you for taking time to appear on our program. Great project.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
More from Contemporary Retirement after these messages.
People don't realize it takes a lot to care for a family member in your home. John's dad was very headstrong, so I think that was a lot for him to get over and try to come to terms with that he had terminal illness. I would recommend to everybody to get hospice involved at the get-go. When you first learn about it, get it set up. It's going to make it, it's terrible what you're going through already, but it's going to make it easier for you in the long run because we couldn't have done it without them.
Call Hospice today. Hospice of Washington County, when time matters most.
I have wanted to be a teacher ever since first grade. Without the Mary and Ruth Smith Scholarship, I would not be successful as a growing adult.
Do you wish to make a difference in the lives of others? You can, and you don't have to be wealthy to impact future generations. Start your legacy at the Community Foundation and impact lives, just as Mary and Ruth Smith have done.
Thank you to the Community Foundation for believing in me and providing me the opportunity to become successful with my goals.
Contemporary Retirement is sponsored in part by a grant from Albright, Crumbacher, Mao, and Eitel. Call Albright, Crumbacher, Mao, and Eitel, your trusted advisors for business, personal, and estate planning at 301-739-5300.
Welcome to the Making Sense feature on Contemporary Retirement. Making Sense focuses on the financial issues affecting the retirement community. With me today is Doug Fiery, Douglas Fiery Funeral Homes. Welcome to the show, Doug.
Thanks, Mike.
Doug, you know, we're big proponents of pre-planning funerals, and you know, I think the most amazing question that always begins when I suggest this, and you talk to families, is if I die.
Right, if. It's always an if, and we both know it's not going to be if, it's just when. And not to sound morbid or anything, but it's a reality of life, and it's something that we really need to look at.
And oftentimes, as we find as people age, you know, their tolerance level for dealing with a lot of stress, you know, particularly additional stress, is not very good.
Absolutely. I think, you know, when you're clear-minded, obviously when you're younger, and I think your thoughts are better in line with what you really want to do. So it is one of those opportunities to sit down and at least talk about it. At least sit down and find out what it takes to do it, what's involved with it, and just to really educate yourself.
And of course, I find a lot of families today have very little local support, meaning that their families are now spread to the wind. You know, their kids are all over the place, and many times none of them in the immediate area, which then immediately creates a logistical issue in addition to everything else going on to try to get that funeral set up.
Absolutely. And so many people need to do that from the standpoint is their kids are so far away. It's very difficult for them to get back at the time of someone's death to start, you know, making plans and trying to think, where's this, where's that? And it just really puts an additional stress on your family when you really don't have to.
And, you know, we oftentimes find that families come back after the fact when we've pressed them to do pre-plan. And we want to emphasize pre-plan does not mean prepay. They are two totally separate events. There are times that prepaying is clearly very, very important, and there are other times it's not so important. But when we talk about pre-plan, is that they come back after the fact and go, boy, that really wasn't difficult at all, and I thought it was going to be a nightmare, and you almost never hear that when somebody did not pre-plan.
That's exactly right. If we could have a mini cam in there just to show you all the things after that, and what you just said was exactly right. People say, well, that wasn't so bad. You know, and they really realize, and I think there's that peace of mind when they're done to know that, hey, I've got all this taken care of. It's something else off my bucket list, and I can go about and live my retirement and enjoy things.
Well, and then of course, you know, when you have one spouse dies, it's totally a cataclysmic event for the living spouse, and it's really the wrong time to now lay a bunch of decisions on them.
Absolutely, because then you could be making decisions, you know, with a lot of emotion involved and things, and you probably ought to let the dust settle a little bit, get your feet underneath you a little bit, and then go ahead and sit down and talk about it, but at least plant the seed.
As I oftentimes say, somewhat tongue-in-cheek, you know, we all have, our children are the greatest children ever, and my oldest daughter, I jokingly say, it wasn't until she was close to 30 that she ever had a thought about me that didn't involve her name first. I want Dad to fill in the blank. You know?
Right.
and the reality is today she has a pretty clear idea what I've done for the last 10 years, but no idea how I lived the first 50 years.
And we've talked about how many times push comes to shove, they think they know these things, but when really, they really don't, and they don't know all that information. They don't even know necessarily where to find that information. So it really does put a lot of stress factor on everybody.
And then one of the things that we talk about is obviously, you know, getting obituaries right and those sorts of things. People say they don't care. Well, it's fine. But if they do care, then it's not okay, because they really need to participate in that process.
Absolutely. Those are so many things that we talk about. There's so many components to making a good set of pre-arrangements and planning well. And that's all from the standpoint of knowing that information for obituary, from knowing what type of service you want to have. Is it cremation? Is it traditional? All the little details. How many death certificates do you think you need, down to maybe I want it in another newspaper. Maybe I want a picture or I don't want a picture. Just tons of small details.
And one of the things that we talk about here is whether or not it's necessary to prepay in order to pre-plan.
Right, and you were very clear on that, and it's true. There are situations when it makes sense to prepay and times when it's not. And I think that's when a manager want to sit down and look at each case individually. And there's so many different situations. We have insurances that people can trust now. We can tie those up to help protect them. And so a lot of different options out there, and I think each case is individual, and that's why it's really important to sit down and talk it out.
You know, when I have a family that has a lot of liquidity, immediate family members available, you know, that's an optional choice whether to prepay or not. But we have a number of families out there in which, you know, there are no children. It is not fair to impose, you know, any sort of financial responsibility on a non-family member or a distant family member. And in that case, provided it's not going to compromise their living, we want them to prepay just so that it's a total non-issue for those distant family members or non-family members to handle the funeral.
Right, absolutely. And it just takes care of that whole component of things and takes it off the books for them. The other side of that is the people who I think a lot of people think, I don't have the money to do this. I don't know what I'm going to do, so I'm just going to kind of shove it under the rug and not deal with it. And I think those are the people we can help the most if we can sit down and show them these are the options you have, but you've got to come in years in advance to kind of get all those things going, which will really benefit you, that person, and the family going forward.
Doug, as always, thanks for taking time to appear on our program.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you from Contemporary Retirement.
Remember a more carefree time? Leave your insurance worries to us, Wright Gardner. Call or visit our website to learn how we can make insurance simple and more affordable.
These days, it seems like everything's online, and filling out claim forms and receiving and paying bills online isn't always easiest. That's why we at Quality First Insurance encourage you to just give us a call. Let us help.
Hi there, I'm Paul Sweeney with Quality First Insurance, and it's still just this simple. Our offices are open every weekday where you'll be able to call and speak to real, live people.
No detail was missed. I'm so glad that I turned to Quality First Insurance.
I've recommended Quality First Insurance to my friends who've been just as satisfied.
If you're not happy with what you're paying for Medigap, or more importantly, not happy with your service, give us a try. We're locally owned, and we take the time to provide you with the best. We are Quality First Insurance, and our mission is to provide quality products to quality people. Pick up the phone and give us a call today at 800-745-1411.